TESOL Online, which stands for Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages. This presentation just goes over some of the ways that I've found to engage as an English language educator online. This first section is about teaching online. That's usually the first thing that people think of when they think of TESOL online opportunities. That's just tutoring via video chat. Something you should consider as you're going into this process is the commitment that is required of a position like this to really do it well. It does require a lot of prep time. I would say 50% of the job is prepping and 50% is the time spent actually in front of the camera with the student. It is required that you of course have a computer with a video camera, a webcam, and also a headset with a microphone is nice so they can really hear you clearly. The Wi-Fi connection, or if you have Ethernet, is obviously important. It's very difficult to teach a student when the audio is all jarbled and you have no idea whether they pronounce something correctly or not. Also, teaching materials, which I'll touch on later, definitely make the lesson go a lot smoother. So we'll talk about some of those that you may want to purchase. This also is often an independent contractor type position, which means you're responsible for dealing with your own taxes and your schedule, and it's not a secure paycheck every month. How well you teach, really dictates how many students you're going to have and how often they want to book with you. So you are responsible for your own success in that way. I would say as you're going into this, there's a lot of things to keep in mind, but confidence and perseverance are really important. It does pay off. It may be a little bumpy in the beginning, getting schedules set and getting all of the technology set up, but in the end, it really pays off when you have that relationship with your students and you're able to see the progress that they make. So the perseverance aspect also applies to the actual lessons. I've had a lot of lessons where students, and I'm talking specifically about children here, are very distracted or tired or start crying or whatever it is. And you kind of learn how to avoid that in the future with that particular student, but every student is different. So if you kind of persevere through those first few lessons when maybe they have a little bit of trouble concentrating, in the end, I think you can find a way to engage all different personalities of students, whether they be children or adults. A few more considerations I'd like to point out is what your plans are in the future. If you plan to go to a certain country and you would like to learn a certain language or learn more about a culture, you may want to consider that when you're choosing the company that you want to work for or the region that you want to market yourself to. So if you're planning on going to China, there's companies that deal specifically with Chinese customers, and maybe that would be the best so that you can kind of get a head start on learning about the culture. Every culture is going to have these very unique attributes that do inform the way that they learn a language and how they compare their language to yours, all that. So keep that in mind. You might want to get a little bit of practice with that, or maybe you would like to have a breadth of experience with different cultures so you can decide where you want to go. Teaching online is an amazing opportunity, and I feel very lucky to be alive in a time when we can do it, but I would say it definitely doesn't replace the experience of teaching one-on-one in person or one-to a class in person. So I really encourage everyone to go abroad and teach English in person or teach whatever language it is that you would like. Flexibility of schedule. Time zones are something that you need to keep in mind when you're choosing a company to work with. So daylight savings time does not exist in some countries. I ran into that issue when I was teaching for VIP Kid, which I'll talk about in a minute. And they require a certain amount of hours available from you during their peak times. And their peak times, for me, the time I chose to be available within their peak time was in Pacific Standard Time in California, where I am. It was from 5:30 to 7 a.m. And so when daylight savings time happened, it went to 4:30 to 6 a.m., which was impossible for me to keep up. So do keep that in mind when you're when you're selecting your schedule and when you're kind of thinking about how many hours you want to work per week, and when you want to work them. Be honest with yourself about that as well. You know, I'm the type of person that wants to jump all in, and you know, all hours that I have available, I'll mark as available. And you learn quickly that you can't work every hour that you're free. You do need time to lesson plan and relax and all of that. So be wary of that if you're like me. Another thing that some companies require is previous teaching or tutoring experience. If you have that, then that can also, you know, make you a little bit more marketable. If you don't have it, you might want to just go out and get it. It doesn't have to be anything serious. Some of them just require something, so you can go volunteer somewhere in your community and then say that you have that experience. So that's a quick tip to get a better salary for some of them and a better position. So as I've been kind of talking about, you want to think about what it is that you are looking for in your experience teaching. Do you prefer teaching adults or children? Are you looking for more of a language exchange where maybe you are learning a language and also teaching it via just having a relationship with somebody abroad? Or are you looking for more of a traditional language instruction position where you're the teacher and they're the student, and you know, you prepare the lessons and you are getting paid? Also some companies, some positions are more spontaneous and allow you to bring in, you know, your favorite things about your culture to talk about, and holidays and all of that, and you get to kind of just go off of what's happening in the lesson and decide that in the moment that student really loves, you know, 5 little monkeys jumping on the bed, and you're going to do that with all the animals that you can think of. You know, if you want to have that space, think about that when you're talking to a company and finding out more about their program. Some programs are much more structured and they expect you to accomplish certain learning objectives with the student, and they will probably provide more curriculum for you. Also, there are some programs out there, and then there's some opportunities are more of platforms for you to market yourself. So whether you want to be part of a set program where maybe you don't have to go out and find clients, you don't have to design the curriculum, things like that, are out there, as well as companies that provide more of a platform for you to market your services. So maybe they take a little bit of the commission, but you are you're the product more than the company being the product and you being an employee. Okay, so here I want to talk about my experience, and I'll mention how I got started and which companies I've worked with. So I love spreadsheets, and that is how, this right here is how I decided who to work for. I went through and just listed all of the companies I could find that, you know, were doing similar things to what I wanted, and I made notes about each one, and then I, you know, kept track of which ones I applied to, which ones I was accepted to. Definitely do some research before you accept a position. There are a lot of reviews out there that will kind of point you in the direction of which companies are really treating their people fairly, treating their teachers well. I would say that Glassdoor was probably the best resource for that, but some companies are a little bit less well known, so they may not be on Glassdoor. So you just have to type in the name of the company and review and kind of see what you can find. You might want to also take a look at them as a company, you know, outside of their employment, what their funding is like, what their stats are like. Next, of course, is to apply and then accept your favorite or favorites. Oh, so this is my setup. When I'm teaching to children, as you can probably guess, this is what I would recommend getting when you're getting started. I ended up with this My Little Pony stuffed animal, and you know, it has been such a hit. It's surprising that a lot of other countries also have My Little Ponies, and one of my students has this exact same one in 3 different sizes, so we can really connect over that. But I would say just having a toy outside of a puppet, I said it had puppets as well, but having just a toy is kind of fun sometimes because you can have, you know, your toys make friends with their toys, and they're often recognizable if it's a brand name toy, which is nice. A magnetic whiteboard is, to me, essential. As you can see, I have the magnets lined up there at the top, so I can write on this. I can put a flashcard on it with a magnet. I make my own flashcards pretty often. I just take a piece of paper and draw something or print something out on it. And then I can draw around it with the whiteboard markers, which is really great. Books, books are great, but I think you learn by experience which ones are going to be a hit and which ones are going to flop in an online setting, because especially when the student can't see it that well, you know, you can hold it up to the camera, but it needs to be easy to understand visually, kind of from far away, and it's actually very surprising how many children's books have very long words in them and very complicated stories and talk about abstract concepts such as dreams and, you know, what's hiding in the shadows and things. That I'm speaking from experience. This morning I tried to read a story about bedtime, and it was all about dreams. And if you think about it from someone who doesn't speak English's point of view, every one of these pages was a completely different landscape. They couldn't follow it at all because it was all about dreams, and there was a strange smattering of characters that were somehow related. So my poor student was completely confused by it. So using books that have a more concrete storyline, I've found are very helpful. That, you know, you can point out, and of course you don't just read it and go to the next page. You know, every page is an opportunity to point out new vocabulary and kind of discuss with the student what is happening in that photo, so they really understand what the story is outside of just the words on the page. Also, you know, it is fun to throw in some books that have rhyming, that have just, you know, rhymes in them as well, like Dr. Seuss. Even though they may not understand them, the kids usually understand the lyrical, the kind of fun of the lyrical feeling of those rhyming books. So even if they don't exactly understand what's going on, they're kind of engaged just because they're waiting for that next rhyme to happen. They're listening for that next sound that they know is coming. So that kind of engages them enough to get through a story, even if they don't completely understand the storyline. Flashcards, also essential. I have some with the US money on them, which are great, as well as just random animals and, you know, different types of household or food items, everything like that. Puppets are also really, really fun, and you know what I like about puppets is that it takes some of the pressure off of the student to have a conversation sometimes. When I first start with a student and I'm, you know, saying hello, how are you, and I expect them, obviously they can see because I'm gesturing to them that I want them to respond. You know, I'm putting my hand up to my ear, I'm listening, waiting for you to respond, and they, you know, don't know which part of what I've said they're supposed to say back and what the appropriate response is. So I find that the puppets kind of take that pressure off because they can see a conversation demonstrated and they can understand what is expected of them before having to actually do it. The other thing that's convenient about a puppet that you can see the whole body is that you can hold it up to the camera for things like head, shoulders, knees, and toes, and you can point out the knees and the toes without having to try to pull your leg up into the view of the screen. You can see my headset with the mic there, and also I just got this set of alphabet and number magnets from the store, and they're so cheap, and it's much easier than trying to find the flashcard or write down every letter on your whiteboard every time. You can kind of manipulate them, mix them up, have them, put them in order. If I'd like to do this with their name a lot to get them engaged, and mix up their name and then have them tell you the order of it, and you can fix it on the whiteboard if it's magnetic, that is. So this is the first company that I worked for. It's called VIP Kid. This is one that is based in China, and it does have a minimum requirement of available hours during peak times for them. So peak times are when the students, when the children aren't in school. It provides you with curriculum to follow, which I really enjoyed. They have a great curriculum. It's based on the American Common Core standards. They only accept North American teachers, and you must have some teaching experience in a North American classroom too. So if you don't have that, then this may not be the position for you. But if you do, I definitely recommend it. The only thing that I had trouble with was the time zones. As I mentioned, I couldn't get my availability lined up with their peak times enough to where I met the 7.5 hour requirement. So that was why I wasn't able to continue to work with them. But I think they have really great support, and they help you get started. They do a little bit of training. They have you do a practicum where they're kind of giving you some feedback about your teaching style, and they do periodic evaluations as well. So you are getting evaluations from them. They're not that old actually. They're kind of a new company, but they're pretty large and established, which means that most problems that you may come up with or may have, someone else has probably already had. So they have a great teachers forum where you can chat with other teachers who may be having the same issues, and find support from within the community without even having to talk to the VIP Kids staff, which is really an asset. Lingo Kids Live, this one is very new. Lingo Kids, the app, is an application, of course, just for mobile devices, and they have all kinds of fun games that are interactive. The children can swipe or drag an object, drag a pot into the sink to be clean, things like that. But what they've just added, what's new, is the live aspect. So they now have English teachers that you can preview here in the bottom of their app, so you can see I'm in the middle, and you can kind of get a little introduction to them, and then you can schedule a time with them to have a little lesson. So they have 30-minute lessons. I've only done one-to-one, though they do offer group as well. And they're mostly Latin American, European, and Slavic countries. So right now I have a student from Russia and one from Turkey. And there are a lot of students from Spain. They are based in Spain, so they get a lot of students from there, as well as Latin America, Portugal, all around. There are no minimum hours required here, so you're much more in charge of your own schedule. If you're going out of town for a week, you don't have to worry about meeting that 7.5 hour requirement or putting in for this kind of vacation time thing that you had to do with VIP Kid. So it's a lot more flexible. But they don't have as many clients, so if you are looking to have your availability completely blocked out, you want to get all the hours you have filled with students, something more established, I think, is going to be a better bet. But if you're a little bit more flexible and you'd like to be more spontaneous in your lessons as well, as I said, as it's pretty new, there isn't too much of a set curriculum. You're welcome to use the content from the app to engage the students. So they have a lot of games as well as videos of songs from other English providers in there. And so what you can do is you're welcome to share your screen with the student, and you can kind of sing some of those songs together that they're familiar with from the app. So it does give you a basis to work off of, that the students are familiar with a lot of this content, a lot of these songs, so you kind of know what they probably have already been exposed to, and that gets them really excited within the lesson. Gymglish. So Gymglish is something that I've just become become familiar with. They asked me to become a partner on their website. So it's also a new thing for them. It's still in its beta phase, but what Gymglish is, it's been around for a while actually. It's story-based learning. So every day you get an email with your daily English lesson, or they also have it in French. So this is the English one. It's called Gymglish, right? So, but it's a similar company that does one for French as well. So you get an email, and within that email, there is, well, I can pull it up and show it to you. Within that email, you have this little bit of story that you have to read through. It goes over some vocabulary with you, and then you do some reading comprehension questions. The next section is audio, so you listen to the audio, more reading comprehension questions. You have some grammar questions to go through, and then you submit it. So all in all, it's meant to only take about 15 minutes of your time every day. It's focused on getting you familiar with some business English, so it is for adults. And the program that they are beta testing right now is this partner program where people can have adult clients that they kind of recommend use Gymglish, and then you can use their curriculum to inform your curriculum. You can kind of base your lessons off that, make sure they really understood it. And then, you know, commission can go both ways, right? Okay, so here's another section. It's called content creation. This is going to be mainly focusing on some materials development that I did for a company called Lingo. They are an application, or they have created an application that is available on mobile devices. It was mainly marketed to Korea and China. And it's a 3D environment that you can walk around in, and you know, you can pick certain things up and explore. And there's an English buddy in there, or English tutor, who helps you out with your experience in there. So the idea is that you would be experiencing things that you would probably experience once you got to an English-speaking country. So you get to practice ordering food, buying clothes, anything that you feel that you want to practice. So it is immersive, and it's only English is spoken in there. You do get to do a little bit of role playing with your English buddy. They can be the person behind the counter, and you can be the person buying the hamburger, all of that. And my role in this company was to create some scripts that would help guide the conversation. So I first had to plan out what I wanted the learning objectives to be, which was challenging because the audience was very varied. So it was, it was kind of marketed towards young adults up to maybe just any adults essentially, but kind of the college age people who are maybe going to go study abroad in an English-speaking country. And their level of English can be extremely varied. So it was really up to the English tutors who were in there on the front lines to vary their content based on the level of the student. But I created the kind of guide scripts that just sparked conversation and allowed the tutors to kind of address some cultural things that I thought would be fun, like explain, why certain sodas cost this much, and why what a chocolate shake is, and what's so exciting about the sourdough bread in San Francisco, things like that. We also had some cooperative learning activities, such as games and just kind of like what you would do in a classroom. If you were with a group of people in Lingoland, you could have the English buddy would be like the teacher, and you could kind of do some of those games like Simon Says, and you could take 2 steps forward, all those types of things, pick up a fork, that kind of stuff. I wanted to kind of explain this a little bit more in depth. So you can see that you have an avatar, right? This is Mimi. She is our cute little avatar. And in this example, this is a student avatar. So at the top, they would see the question that the tutor had asked them. If they needed help, they could click the help button, and they would get a prompt of what they should be replying, but they would lose stars. And the tutor also has their own side to this that has a little bit more information about, how to spark that conversation. Here are a couple of examples of what these users would talk about. The tutor can ask, what do you think they sell in this restaurant? You can see there's a crab floating in the middle, so they're actually holding the crab at that moment. So that's kind of a hint. What do you think they sell here? Maybe seafood. And then down on the bottom, we have, can you pick up a fork? Please tap it to pick it up. On the right, you can see there's a fork floating in the middle. So they were able to pick up a fork. So that's kind of a basic example of a command that you could, command game. You can play kind of a Simon Says thing with them. A more advanced question that the tutors might have asked is, why is there a prison on an island? So you could talk about Alcatraz Island and, you know, why do you think that they would do that? And discuss, you know, what the limitations of having something on an island are and the challenges and advantages of it. Also at the bottom, you can see, this is one of my favorites, is asking a student, would you like it open or closed when they're finishing up at a bar, when they're getting their drink. That usually stumps them if they haven't been to an English-speaking country. So that's just an example of kind of a cultural phrase that is used and a thing that might need to be explained in this safe environment versus when they're out there in the real world in a loud bar. Okay, TESOL certification. There are a lot of opportunities to get your TESOL certification online. I'm currently doing it right now through the University of Toronto. It is entirely online. There's no in-person commitment or requirement. Some of them are more blended, so they do require you to find some opportunities to practice teaching in your community. Since I already have experience teaching English in person in France, I didn't feel that I needed one of those programs. I wanted to just get more of a handle on the theory and the and more abstract concepts within, within the field of language teaching. So I gave you another one of these "what are you looking for" slides. Some things to think about going into it if you're thinking about getting your certification online. Some positions do require you have it, especially if you're going to teach abroad. Some require that you take their own their training anyway. So I know, like, there's some positions in Thailand, for example, that when you arrive, you go through, a 2-week program where they teach you how they want you to teach, essentially. So for a position like that, maybe you're not really going to need your own certification. Other ones do require a certain brand of certification. So I would say definitely do your research on what you're planning on, how you're planning on teaching in the future before choosing an online source. So some of them just require a TESOL certification, and you can find some that are a little bit more affordable, a little bit quicker, and maybe that's enough for you. You just want to get something to kind of get going. Anything else on here? Oh yeah, so some of these, as I said, are more comprehensive. Some of them are going to be more like theory-based, and some of them are a little bit more practical, where you're really learning how to do a lesson plan and what to do in certain situations in the classroom management, things like that. So keep in mind what you want to do, and then that'll help you inform your decision. Finally, I just want to open myself up to any questions or just discussions that anybody wants to have. I have a contact button on my website, and if you'd like to send me a message and get into a conversation about your experience teaching English, I'd love to hear about it. Or if you have any further questions, things I didn't cover in this presentation. I will be adding some blogs in the future about my experiences with different positions, as well as a recording of this presentation, of course. And I hope to hear from you soon. Thank you for watching.